Ian, after such a positive year, it's great to be able to reflect and look ahead with you ahead of today's AGM. It falls in June, which has been a very busy window for the national team, so I feel like it's right to start there. And let's start with the men's team, Steve Clarke's squad. How do you reflect on the recent spell that we've seen?
2021 was a really positive year for the men's national team, there's no doubt about that. We were delighted to host the delayed Euro 2020 matches at Hampden. Hampden showed what a good venue is for that type of event. We were obviously delighted to participate, and that helped drive a huge amount of engagement with the national team, which carried on into the qualifying campaign for Qatar. We saw Scotland Supporters Club memberships reach a maximum of 38,000, which is absolutely fantastic achievement, and down to the success of the squad. We finished second in the qualifying group with the highest points total of any second place team, which was a terrific achievement. We finished the campaign particularly strongly. Obviously, everybody was devastated with the performance and result against Ukraine. You know, it wasn't the outcome that anybody wanted. We would have loved to be going to the World Cup. Unfortunately, it wasn't to be. But I think the experience of the Euros, the participation at the major finals, and the disappointment of Qatar has really strengthened Steve and the players' resolve to make sure that we're at the next major tournament we possibly can be.
Absolutely. And the women's national team as well. It'll be a year next month that Pedro Martinez Losa has been in the job. A year. How do you reflect on the year he's had at the helm?
He's settled in really well. It's difficult for international managers because they don't have the contact time with the players that a club manager would do. Obviously, it's limited periods across the year. It always takes an international manager a few camps to get his ideas across to the team. And I think you can see the changes in the progress that's happening. You know, if you just look at the two matches that we played against Spain, the one over in Spain was really disappointing. Whilst we had a disappointing result against them here at Hampden, it was a terrific performance, and you can see, you know, Pedro's ideas being taken on by the squad. We've got a huge game against the Ukraine at the end of this week in Poland, which will be vital in terms of qualification for the Women's World Cup in 2023. And a win would put us in a really good position to make the playoffs, which will be a terrific achievement. So there's real development there. Obviously, the women's team playing at Hampden and that being unveiled as their home was the right thing to do as an association. I know the players are absolutely delighted to be playing there, and we're seeing crowds grow and develop with every match, which is obviously very important for us.
Yeah, you touched on Hampden Park becoming the permanent home of the Scotland women's national team there. I want to talk to you about Hampden Park, of course, with the permanent acquisition of the stadium as well. That has seen some huge benefits already with the concerts that we're hosting. How do you feel looking forward for the stadium?
It has. The main driver behind ownership of the stadium was the opportunity that it gives us to drive revenue into the association, which we then utilise for the development and growth of the game across every level. We've got 8 concerts booked this summer. We've got 7 concerts booked for next year. Hopefully we can continue those numbers. The stadium operations team here deserve a huge amount of credit. It's been a hugely steep learning curve for them because it's not something that we've dealt with on a regular basis, particularly during the COVID years. But the concerts are going well, and you know, it's about looking at concerts. It's about looking at what football events can we have. Obviously, there's a potential for Euro 28 to come to Hampden. What else can we do in between time in a footballing context, and what can we do just in a wider event context, and what other major events can we entice promoters and artists of, you know, whether that's music, whether that's boxing, whatever it is, to come to the stadium and make the most of the venue.
There have been big strides forward regarding VAR, of course, in the past year. It's been a major talking point. How important have the steps been that have been taken so far, and what are, crucially, the next stages of this process?
It's vitally important to bring in VAR into the Scottish game. You know, from a National Association perspective, in terms of referee retention, referee recruitment, it's vital from that perspective, and obviously it helps the referees during match days because it's a difficult enough job to referee a game. You know, we want to give them as much support as we can. There's been a huge amount of work that we've gone through. Crawford Allen and the referee operations team have worked really hard with the match officials to make sure that their training is all going to plan, and it is. We are on course for the start date that we previously publicised. There's a sign-off process to go through with FIFA. FIFA have a very set out and established protocol that we need to conform to. They'll come over and check that everything that we're doing is appropriate, and it will be. I think that the big element, or one of the biggest elements around about VR, is going to be the education of fans, the education of players, the education of managers, the education of broadcasters, so that people understand why we use it and when we use it. It's not a panacea. It's not going to eradicate every wrong throw-in or every wrong corner in the game. It only deals with the significant issues, and it's important that everybody understands exactly what it's used for. But we'll be absolutely delighted when it's rolled out later on this year.
Yeah, of course. And another important question to touch on as well, and you've referenced it already, is the bid for Euro 2028. That's been a major, significant step in the past year. Can you give us any update at this stage in the process?
The update is that we're working through the bid dossier. Obviously, we noted expression of interest in line with UEFA timelines. Ourselves, the other four host associations and the respective government partners are working through that bid dossier which UEFA have provided. There is obviously a huge amount of work in that to make sure that we have all the requirements met and we can put forward as strong a bid as we possibly can, which we're absolutely confident we would do. Obviously, we saw the benefit that hosting Euro 2020 had to football across the country, and we would be absolutely delighted to do that again in 28.
Last season saw the introduction of senior B teams to the Lowland League, of course. From our perspective at the Scottish FA, I know it's more of a league matter, but what do you think it can achieve from a Scottish FA perspective, seeing these introductions?
Yeah, the only skin we have in the game is about player development. We are responsible for player development pathway. Club Academy Scotland look to under 18s. There is recognition across the game in this country that from 17 to 21 we need to do something to fix that missing link. There's not enough opportunities for our top talent to develop at that age. B teams have been proven across Europe to do that. You know, the number of European countries that have them, the benefits that they see in terms of the national team mean that, you know, it's definitely something that we need to consider. Unfortunately, it's not within our gift as a national association to implement, and we need to work with leagues and work with clubs to understand the art of the possible. But you know, it's about developing Scottish talent. That is a fundamental for us. That's the reason that the criteria for this year means that 7 of the starting 11 have to be eligible to play for the national team. There's no point us wanting to do this if it's going to develop players for other countries. We want to see the best Scottish talent that we can to give us the best national teams that we can, because we see that the engagement and the positivity that qualification for major tournaments has across the country, and the better the players will develop and the more chance we have of doing that.
Absolutely. Speaking of youth development, let's touch on our youth teams and the performance school programme as well, in particular, following a year which seen 2 performance school players make their debuts for Steve Clarke's squad. That was a huge headline.
Yeah, fantastic. I was at the performance school graduation ceremony last night, which covered 3 years because they've not been able to have that due to COVID. It was terrific to see the young players coming through that process. A number of them are moving down south. They're being headhunted by, you know, bigger clubs, which is testament to the work that the performance school coaches and their clubs have obviously undertaken in those players. You touched on Billy and Nathan. It's great to see them. Obviously, Calvin Ramsey is another notable one who's just a big money move to Liverpool. In the women's game, we've got Leah Eddy and Lauren Davidson, who've come through the performance school programme and made debuts for the Scottish women's national team, which is obviously vitally important. So from a player development perspective, again, it has proven to be a really worthwhile project.
Absolutely. And just to finish, it's a big year ahead for the association, isn't it, Ian, with the 150th anniversary on the horizon? Big plans in the process?
Yeah, we're working through those at the moment. There's a lot going on. You know, we've got the 150th anniversary of the association. We've got the 150th anniversary of the first international match against England. We've got the 50th anniversary of the first women's international match. You know, there's a lot happening all at the same time, and it's absolutely right that we recognise all those significant achievements, and we're working through what celebrations we'll have over the next year.